Some of you may remember that around Thanksgiving of last year, several people were hospitalized after overdosing on spice that they had purchased from two drug dealers downtown. The dealers were arrested, but our office was unable to prosecute because the synthetic drugs that were sold were not included among the 5 chemical compounds prohibited by the state of California. So the dealers went free and continued selling spice downtown. John Hemmerling, again, head of our criminal division, decided to investigate the problem and potential solutions for addressing this public health and safety issue. With the strong support of the mayor, Councilmember Gloria, and Chief Zimmerman, John brought together people from the police department, the narcotics unit, the crime lab, and some of our brightest deputy city attorneys, including Anne Marie Council and Michelle Garland, to conduct the research and that led to this ordinance. The ordinance they wrote is the first of its kind in California and is intended to address the problem with spice and related items head on. Now, let me just make it clear. We're not doing away with bath salts, and we're not doing away with potpourri. These are different. These are laced with drugs, mind-altering drugs. That's the difference. And it's sometimes a cat and mouse when you're dealing with criminal activities. This ordinance is designed to eliminate that cat and mouse and just make it illegal. Anyone who sells this type of material would be prosecuted. I'd like to now introduce John Hemmerling to explain a bit what he did and why.
Thank you, Jan. Good afternoon. I'd like to first point out that this epidemic of synthetic cannabinoids and new and novel psychoactive and synthetic drugs is not a new phenomenon. What is new is a staggering spike in its use and an emergency response to that. I started really looking at this in November last year when the first recognizable spike occurred. What was discovered is that there weren't laws in place to properly combat this epidemic, and we needed a local response for public health and safety reasons. This office and the police department started immediate outreach to businesses to ask them to voluntarily stop selling this dangerous street drug. But that's only one part. Street sales is another target that's not easy to gain cooperation through outreach. So additionally, in parallel, the city attorney's office, along with the SDP narcotics unit and the crime lab, started looking at ways to address shortfalls in the law. With a combined effort, looking at over a dozen other similar laws in the state and across the country as far as Alaska and Rhode Island, as well as consulting with the DEA, toxicologists, medical doctors, our own EMS director, we believe we've come up with an ordinance that helps hold businesses and sellers of this product accountable and helps protect the public. Compared to those jurisdictions, though, ours is unique in its enforcement and design and comprehensive nature. Notably, we've incorporated the federal Schedule I drugs and its analogs, those banned substances, and those that are similar, that have a like effect on the brain and those brain functions. Again, I want to specifically thank Chief Zimmerman, Captain Ahern, Lieutenant Matt Novak, Lisa Marcheski from the crime lab, and the officers and detectives at Ground Zero on this problem from the police department. And additionally, Anne Marie Council, Catherine Turner, and Michelle Garland from our office, who did some great and incredible work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, John, and excellent work by our entire city attorney's team. Last year when I was speaking about this and was talking to Chief Zimmerman, said we need to find ways to address this growing problem. And I will tell you, our city attorney's office was an incredible partner every step of the way. And I want to thank our city attorney, Jan Goldsmith, for his determination to ensure that we had a solution, but one that will actually be able to continue to get the job done, as John just pointed out. So I want to commend them for their work and collaboration on a very unique ordinance that has been a very difficult problem for our community. Simply put, this new law will put San Diego on the cutting edge of solving the spice epidemic, a drug that has swept through areas and unfortunately perpetuates the cycle of homelessness for many on the streets. If someone manufactures, sells, or possesses spice in San Diego, this ordinance will give the city the necessary enforcement tools to stop it. I believe this ordinance is going to be a model for other cities to follow and help set the standard throughout the state. It really does two important things. First, it outlaws many of those dangerous drugs that are not yet outlawed in California. And as John just mentioned in our city attorney, the problem has been that it's been too narrowly focused on a handful of specific chemical compounds rather than categories of drugs. This means what you've seen is people tweaking the concoctions enough to get around whatever law went into effect. This approach changes that. And if they alter the drug, it is going to remain illegal. And secondly, as I said, this ordinance is designed to be flexible. And that is the approach I think that is going to allow us to actually achieve the results that we want. We have to be able to make sure that we're staying on top of this and make sure that we get spice and these other novel yet dangerous drugs off our streets. Spice has hugely harmful effects on the individuals that use the drug. It is something, unfortunately, we have seen day after day on the streets, and that really helps particularly some of those that are homeless from seeking the help and the care that they need. Users are a danger to themselves and, of course, anyone who crosses their path. Again, I want to thank our city attorney. I want to thank Jan Goldsmith and his entire team for developing this unique strategy that I'm confident will serve as a model for other cities to help follow. And then again, your leadership, Jan, is very much appreciated. And now I'm going to introduce Council Member Todd Gloria. He's been extremely active on this issue from the very beginning. And then our Police Chief, Shelley Zimmerman. Councilman?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all so much for being here this afternoon. This is an important issue that deserves the public's attention, and being here today is going to help us do that. Listen, I'm here for a couple of reasons. Council District 3, the district I have the honor to represent, has seen a dramatic increase in the use of spice in just recent months. In downtown alone, we've seen and experienced a 500% increase just since late last year. And you can look at this graphic here to see that these are citywide numbers, and so it's not just a District 3 issue, although a lot of it is concentrated in our council district. Why is this a problem? Well, spice is dangerous, it's unpredictable, and it's an unregulated drug that unfortunately has become rampant in too many of our neighborhoods. It disturbs the users, it harms the user's life, puts them at risk, and of course disturbs our quality of life for many of our residents, business owners, and visitors. I'm here as the Council District 3 representative, but I'm also here as the chair of the Budget Committee. I'll tell you that our city staff has shared with me that since March of last year, this drug and responding to it through our emergency medical services as well as our police department has cost us $3.2 million. I'm also here as someone who chairs the Regional Continuum of Care Task Force for the homeless. And as the mayor mentioned, there is a link between this drug use and our inability to get some of our homeless neighbors off the streets. I experienced this personally this past January when I, along with many other volunteers, were out across our region counting our region's homeless. I came across an individual, an 18-year-old young man who was poisoned by spice. The near immediate and life-threatening effect that this drug had on him left an impression on me. I was grateful that our San Diego Police Department, our city attorney's office, was already working on legislation to address this issue definitively. And I was grateful to be able to play a small role in making sure that this legislation was expedited and brought to the city council as soon as possible. As you all know, we'll be taking it up this afternoon at our council meeting. This is an unacceptable situation. I'm grateful to the businesses that have complied with the voluntary request not to sell this substance. I think it's regrettable the businesses that have chosen to ignore that and to contribute to a negative quality of life in too many of our neighborhoods and help consign some of our neighbors to homelessness. That's going to end today. By today's action, we were going to be taking a leadership position in the state. I think that's terrific. And I want to thank the state of California. Our state legislators a number of years ago took action to acknowledge and identify this as a problem. But as with any policy, it needs updating, and that's what the city's hoping to do today. In summary, this is expensive. It's life-threatening, it harms our neighborhoods, and it's exacerbating our homeless problem. This is why we must ban spice, and I look forward to casting a vote in favor of the ordinance this afternoon. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you our Chief of Police, Shelley Zimmerman. Chief?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you all. Good afternoon for being here. Over the past several months, as you heard, that the city of San Diego, we've experienced an unprecedented outbreak of spice-related overdoses. From November 2015 to February 2016, our calls at the San Diego Police Department for service relating to synthetic drugs have increased 257%. Spice, as you know now, is a synthetic drug that is causing significant health problems throughout our entire country. At Mayor Faulkner's direction, our police department and the city attorney's office, thank you very much, Jan Goldsmith, and specifically also John Hemmerling and Michelle Gardner, we partnered together to combat this growing epidemic, and in the process we learned that the current state laws that attempt to regulate synthetic drugs such as spice and also bath salts are woefully inadequate for criminal enforcement. So it was with this in mind that our police department and the city attorney's office created this ordinance that we're talking about today and that we will be presenting in front of city council later today for approval. Synthetic drugs such as spice and bath salts are both made. They're made with no regulation, no industry standard, and no health protections. As you can see in the back, there's some training samples that we have on display, and spice can appear very similar to marijuana and bath salts to cocaine. However, due to the way that they are marketed and the lack of laws against them, users often view them as legal and a safe alternative to unlawful drugs. And as we all know, this could not be further from the truth. So the unpredictability of the potency of synthetic drugs combined with the changing chemical structure with which they are made, it makes it a game of Russian roulette when the user decides to ingest a synthetic drug. In some cases, the user may smoke a particular brand of spice and experience a high. The next time, they may use what they believe is the exact same type but experience medical distress due to a higher potency and or a different chemical structure, which can lead to severe reactions including extreme aggression, paranoia, vomiting, seizures, and yes, even death. I want to thank again everyone who was involved in this, City Attorney's Office, the Mayor, Councilmember Gloria's office, for all your assistance in creating this ordinance. We believe that this ordinance, once approved this afternoon by City Council, will enable us to make the necessary enforcement to rid our streets of this dangerous drug. So, I have two messages for you, for anyone who's listening. Number one, don't use spice. If you do, you can lose your life. And number two, those of you who have been exploiting this loophole and now continue to sell this dangerous drug, you should expect enforcement action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And to emphasize, this is the first of its kind in the state of California. Now, the team that put this ordinance together reviewed other state laws, and a lot of the elements of this were taken from other state laws, bits and pieces that would apply here. And once it's adopted, it will be enforced. Any questions?
Question for John, if I could. You all talked about the overview and how you looked at spice. How does this differ from a generic prescription drug, a PED that you can change? All you have to do is use a formulated generic compound and change the structure of spice, not call it spice, and it can do the same, basically the same thing. What specifically does this ordinance do? You do need some key ingredients, I understand, in spice, but you can still change the formulating structure, correct?
Yes, that's correct, and that's been part of the problem. It's a good question. And again, what we've done is we've adopted the federal schedule and its analogs and things that also have a similar effect. So that similar effect, you may change something very minor, but the similar effect that is created from that on the brain and the brain functions is what now is becoming illegal. So obviously we've dealt with toxicologists and medical doctors that would say, you know, you change structure A, B, C, and then you add D. Well, guess what? This one has the same effect on the brain. Maybe to follow up on that, just to give it maybe a little bit more, is Anne Marie Council, who did a lot of work on this. Anne Marie, do you mind coming up? She did a lot of research on this and working with our office. Anne Marie Council, who's a deputy city attorney here.
Sure, hi, thank you. The problem we've had with this drug is it's not like we've had in the past. You can't be defined by just its name, like heroin or cocaine can. The prescription drug that you mentioned, coming up with a generic version, we're still talking about the same type of drug. These drugs are altered so dramatically, they don't always completely resemble the drug they started with. What we're doing in this ordinance is we're coming up with structural compounds so we can say, is the main structural compound the same, even if changes slightly, and we can still hold them accountable under this ordinance. We've had several forensic chemists review the definitions that we're using, and they are complete, they are well-defined, and they are enforceable.
And are you able to define, I mean, do you have the tools, the capability to define what is and what isn't spice, or what the compounds are?
We absolutely do. We define them as synthetic cathinones and synthetic cannabinoids. And under that, we list all of the different structural compounds that we have seen in this ever-changing area.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
What's it cost?
Depends on it, but
quantity.
that's one of the things that's that makes it obviously that it's not just something of what it is. These costs go anywhere from the small packaging there, 15 to $20. But what's attractive about it is it's a whole lot cheaper than most other street drugs that you can get out there.
And Councilman Gloria, you said it cost $3.2 million to combat this. This is what we spent on combating and.
To respond, because again, as the city attorney noted, prior to this legislation, we're not able to enforce because the compound isn't necessarily illegal. What we have from March of 2015 to about a month ago, 866 incidences with ambulance charges amounting to $2.4 million, and San Diego Fire Department costs to respond at $814,000.
So we're being, okay.
So this is real money. I mean, $500,000 per mile of road paved. I mean, you can get a sense and do the math of what we could be spending this money on if it wasn't for this foolishness, and that's why we got to stop it.
If I can make one additional point regarding enforcement. Today, there are some enforcement actions involving spice. Our office has been involved in it. We've worked with the district attorney's office. Those cases tend to be brought, they're not criminal cases, they're brought under the Business and Professions Code for deceptive business practices. They're more difficult to prove. They have to show that consumers are being misled. So you'll hear about that. We've been involved in it. This is different. As I said early on, we're directly addressing the problem of spice and the mind-altering drugs that are included within that.
So Jan, when you guys go after this collective in PB, you already shut it down. We did a story that they reopened. There was spice in there. When you go to court, will there be two different cases going on there? There then, besides the seizure of the marijuana at the suspected illegal collective and the hundreds of packets of spice?
It depends what's in the spice, but it might be, and I just say it might be, that we don't have a criminal basis for accountability for that spice, depending upon the ingredients. So there we have, well, it's possible depending upon what's in it, but it's unlikely. It's more likely that what we're going there is a zoning violation where we have a clear and violation of court order.
Because you're sort of breaking new ground legally, it sounds like. I mean, is there any concern that some clever defense attorneys might find a way to say, hey, I'm sorry you have the same structures here, but this is not something that's prohibited?
In situations like this, there's always the chance of a cat and mouse game. That's why we've tried to strengthen the law, and there always will be the potential of defense counsel or the manufacturers of trying to find a way around even what we're doing here, and we have to then adjust. And certainly there could be challenges since this is new in the state of California. We've reviewed other states where this has been used and they have been upheld. So we're cutting new ground and we're open for anything and we're ready.
And just to clarify the uniqueness of this ordinance, are you saying that even if they change the compound, you can go after something that has a similar effect on the brain and brain function?
I'm going to have it.
The short answer to that is yes. I'll let Anne Marie expand on that.
Sure. We can do two things. One, if it has a similar chemical structure, we can go after it for the similar chemical structure. With certain drugs, we can also say if it has the same effect on the body. So we have both built into it.
Okay. And secondly, if the city council votes today and passes it today, or all votes in agreement, what's the timetable that you have the law enforcement to go out and start, cracking down on?
Well, just like every ordinance that we pass right now, you have a second reading if it passes today, which will be in 2 weeks, and then 30 days after that, it'll take effect. So that kind of goes towards the timeline, so you figure that out. That goes to by around the first part of July, middle of July. And real, if I could follow up on the question that you'd asked earlier about these ones that were found in that place in the marijuana shop, in the illegal marijuana shop in PB. This law is not retroactive. And so we're not going to be able to go back and say those things that you found there. That's why when Jan was trying to say what's on the books right now at the state, there's very few things that compound structures for spice that are illegal. And we have not been able to find in the last couple of years SDPD that's either tested or have arrested people before that have been a state law violation. So it's undetermined if what we found in those 1,000 packets, if it's going to fall in that or not.
Very good.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge.